fast forward 5 or 6 more years, the one on the left grew by 700,000. The one on the right grew by 350. The gap continues to widen in the actuarial accrued liability. And if you project this out and you go back to I went back and forth and asked Megan, I gave MERS a lot of help, but they wouldn't give me the numbers they wanted. I went back to our other ballpark projection. After 25 years out, that actuarial accrued liability difference is over $3 million. And to me, that represents risk and exposure because we have to fund that number. And they're assuming a huge portion of that funding is by the market rate of return. And that's why we have the huge liability that we do right now of over $2.2 million. I think the biggest benefit, as we've talked, decreasing that or eliminating that future actuarial accrued liability, and you're not subject to any of these assumptions if MERS hits their targets or not. Does that make sense? So, although in the chart we looked at first, it looks like our DB plan should cost 12%, our hybrid should cost 12%, we could switch and save 9, 10, or 11, so we're only saving 1 or 2% of payroll. Again, that's assuming all of MERS assumptions are correct, and they just haven't, and I'm not confident they will. And that's why I think we need to get out of a DB or a hybrid plan. Switching topics, page 5 does give a good representation of what our total employer contribution will be with a 9% contribution. That's the very right-hand column. $266,300, moving down in 11 years to $416,000. If we go to the next page, on page 6, this would be a 10% contribution, so increasing our percentage by 1%. So you'll see in 2031, our increase would be 424.9 less 416. So to add 1 percentage point to employees' retirement benefit would be roughly $13,000 or $14,000. And as we go down to the final chart, you'll see again in the final year it's another $13,000 or $14,000. So just know to go from 9 to 10, it's going to cost a little over $1,000 a month. From 10 to 11, it's going to cost another $1,000 a month. Does that make sense? So ultimately, I do think that actuarial accrued liability table, it does show the gap starts to widen as we go out into year 10 and 11, and I know that gap will continue to widen to the tune of over $3 million eventually in that actuarial accrued liability, 25, 30 years out, and we could be looking at ourselves 30 years from now and saying, MERS didn't hit their rate of return, now our liability is $5, $6, $7 million, whereas if we switch to DC, you contribute the money to the employee's retirement account, you don't have any future liability. It's their money to control, manage, take with them to any future employment. For me, I don't want to speak for every millennial, but I think Casey agreed at last meeting, I think it's actually more attractive to hire young talent with a defined contribution plan than a defined benefit plan. People don't stay at jobs as long as they used to. People like control of their own money. And I think there's always going to be the concern from the younger generation, what if, and it won't be low light power, just because I'm never going to let that happen, but there would be the concern, what if low light power is the next Detroit where they can't pay me, or they haven't funded that future DB benefit, and now you're working your whole career, or a half-year working career, counting on that funding of that pension, and we didn't do our due diligence, and now they're getting 50, 60, 70 cents on the dollar someday. Whereas if you give them that pot of money, it's theirs, they don't ever have to worry about low light and power having the right leadership or board not funding that. So I even think from an employee attraction standpoint, it makes sense to go to DC, as well as just a financial standpoint. And with the attraction standpoint, I do think we have to make it competitive enough to go at least 9, like we did, to attract somebody and make it a meaningful retirement benefit here. So that's my piece on MERS. I'm just looking for a consensus of how the board would like to proceed.
I've said all along, we have to go to a defined contribution system. The question has always been the dollar amounts, or the percentage amounts. I think you've shown a pretty good case. 15% is, like you said, the generally accepted amount of money an individual should be putting away for a comfortable retirement. And if we went 2/3 of that, 10%, I think it's something that is palatable in our financial picture. And then encourage the additional 5% from the employee. Because the employees need to have skin in the game too. I think that's essential.
I would agree. I think it'll be less common to get 35-year employees here, people in my generation, that would benefit from pension essentially.
It'd be great if we could find people that stay for 35 years. I'm just not, I mean, I'd love to have that culture, but
Casey will, but everyone else may not stay for 35 years.
I already got 10 in.
I think a lot of it too is the millennial generation, and many of us across the board are more skeptical of this somebody else controlling your future. We're very much, young people especially, but very much want to be in control of their own destiny. And to leave it to some group out of Detroit, MERS,
Lansing, yeah.
Lansing, excuse me, we think Detroit. But to leave that future to some nebulous group in Lansing, then I don't think that's good. I don't think that's attractive for anyone. I don't think young talent will find that a benefit. Older generations, GM always took care of you. Everybody had pensions, but in the private sector, pensions are gone 20 years.
I'll say I don't even, this may be a very pessimistic way to look at it, but I don't even really factor in the defined benefit portion into my financial projections for my retirement, because I can't ensure that that's actually going to be there. I have to, the only thing I can ensure will be there is the defined contribution, what I put into the 457.
It's kind of like, I mean, my view of Social Security, I don't think I'm ever going to get it.
Yeah.
I hate that I have to pay into it. I'm counting on the United States government to invest that plan wisely so that I have it. I'm not counting a dime on it. So that's like how I think about it. And I appreciate the benefit. I'm glad I have it, but it's just, part of me is pessimistic, like Jeff was saying.
The only risk I can think of is a lot of people our age are not thinking about retirement, are not prioritizing it. So if it's not set up and just taken care of for them, they're responsible to handle that money. There needs to be intentionality, some education about what to do with it and why it's important now.
There are actual provisions you can put in a defined contribution plan where the employee has to take X% out of their paycheck.
Okay.
Like in our hybrid, we did a minimum of 1, but no matter what, somebody has to do 1. So the board, if you have that fear that we're going to hire a bunch of people that aren't going to save anyway, you could say, nope, 5% according to this plan, and they're going to, maybe that's a negative to come and work for Worldwide Power, but then they would be getting their 15, and there are huge penalties and tax implications if they ever tried to withdraw that early, and nobody, I wouldn't say nobody, the vast majority of people will never take that out early. That doesn't have to be decided now, I'm mainly looking for a percentage.
So what are the total difference of the percentage? Because when I see the total employer contribution, it looks very similar among the 3 percentages. So is that really the total for everything? Because you had mentioned something like $1,000 per month, but
No, I'm saying, if you look at the 3 charts, option 1, option 2, option 3, if the employer wanted to contribute 9%, well, instead we're going to contribute 10%. To increase our funding of employees' retirement from 9 to 10, it'll cost Worldwide Power an extra $14,000 in cash a year. That's the financial
to go
hit.
from 9 to 10.
Yes.
But then why does the difference between the charts only show like I'm just looking at the total employer contribution line.
You gotta look at the column, see the 433A?
Yep.
Go to the previous chart,
Page,
424.9,
So this is
That's like 9%.
Yeah, that's
10 grand.
So that's over the beginning of 2031, though, right?
And that's when you'll start to see more and more defined contribution employees employed here. Because next year might be zero, the year after it still might be zero.
Mhm.
10 years out, all of a sudden, you're gonna have people retire, maybe leave for a different job, and now you're actually going to have employees in the defined contribution. So I just use 10 years out because all of a sudden you're gonna have a good pool of people in the DC plan.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So at that point, it would be 1,000 just per month difference between.
9 to 10, and 1,000 more to go from 10 to 11.
Okay.
I don't
So
think,
make sure I understood you at first.
I don't think any of these plans are cost prohibitive. You know, if you said 11% to 9%, it's gonna cost $24,000 more dollars a year. I mean, I don't wanna minimize $24,000, but I mean, we spend $9 million a year, I mean, we'll be able to find whatever you need.
Right.
This, my question, if we're going, so I'm leaning towards the higher numbers. Well, because I'm looking at, is it a means to attract employees? Meaning that, you know, our linemen, you know, we've tried to bring them up, we haven't done it in a, you know, we said, you know, because Consumers has been out trying to poach linemen and the cost and doing that. So again, the competitive side, I don't want to lose anybody to Consumers. So what I'm saying is, if maybe our salaries aren't, again, I don't know about everybody in the organization, but I'm specifically talking about linemen that aren't quite up yet to where Consumers is out trying to poach people. But if our defined benefit is attractive, you know, okay, we're not,
Do you mean defined contribution or defined?
defined
Okay.
contribution, I'm sorry, that,
I'm not sure what Consumers pays, I'm really not.
well, right, but
You mean what they contribute for their.
Correct. Yep,
Their DC.
correct.
I don't know, yeah.
My daughter works for a while,
well, that's where I'm just, if we can- if we can make it that much more attractive to work for low light power,
Agreed, I agree with that.
then, you know, so I'm leaning towards, you know, what our options were, what, 9, 10, 11?
You could do a million, no, you couldn't do a million, but I mean, you could do 20, you could do, we just did 9, 10, 11 for the, that's what we talked about, but you could do any number you want, you kind of have an idea of what it will cost for
We
each
could,
additional
we could
percentage.
even do a kind of a hybrid where we give a base percentage and then we do a dollar for dollar match for every one they do up to some cap, which would encourage, you know, savings and encourage employees, you know, to save for themselves.
I mean, I like that.
That's another way we can look
I
at it.
think that's minus, or I think it's like 6% they contribute and then they match you for every percent you contribute beyond that.
Yeah,
So
there
if
you
you match all your 6%, then you wind up getting a total of 15 or something like that. Or maybe it starts off at 5, then you get another 6, but it's something like that. So they won't contribute a lot if you're not gonna contribute much anything either. Which kind of makes some sense, I think.
Yeah, I think though still as a public utility, because we probably don't, well, we don't pay our linemen as much as some of the private sector,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the IOUs and the others. We do need to be competitive with at least a retirement benefit, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I like what Andrew just, you know, a percentage and then we match.
Yeah.
Then we, a straight 6%, whatever the numbers are, 5%, 6%, and then we match, dollar for dollar of the employee contribution up, up to,
Yeah. I think that's a very simple thing we should just do, because if we focus on it too long, if I'm a young person with young kids and a wife and family trying to support, that's just one part of the employment package I'm considering. It's my salary, it's what my health insurance looks like, because right now I need health insurance. And then retirement is the icing on the cake, what's coming years down the road. So that's why I say priorities sometimes are difficult to align. If we're gonna be competitive, it's gotta involve those other aspects as well, of offering
Right.
somebody.
Yeah,
Because there's needs a 35-year-old has today, that if they don't have as good a retirement with consumers or something, well, they might choose consumers if they offer better health insurance or a bit more money up front.
Yeah, but, I mean, someone smart could look at the whole thing,
I,
you know, and,
Right.
no, I do,
and one thing I liked about the way my employer did it was by matching, the matching part is that I'd be silly to not contribute my 6% because I'm throwing away the 6% they're gonna give me if I don't.
exact,
And so it's basically highly incentivizing me to do that. But it's the kind of thing where it's, hey, if I contribute 6%, I'm getting a whole other 6% for free.
right. But at
Yeah,
the
that's
same time, I'll chime in with Dave, because at one time, a company that I worked for, they contributed to 401k, X amount, everything. As a young person starting out with a family, that sounded great, but at the same time, it was like, I need the money now. I need to take care of my family and everything. So it was like, even though I know that they're gonna match X amount of dollars, I was also saying, yeah, but I need to pay for gas, food and everything right now. I can't afford to take that advantage, so.
well, maybe I mean,
I
we're
don't,
never gonna be able to outpay consumers, but I do think there's potential for us to be more attractive than other munis. And I pulled up what I reported in March, the average muni of 14 responses that contributes to a DC plan is 8.75%. And there's certain people that just don't wanna travel, don't wanna work the overtime, don't wanna be subject to the big machine or the gorilla that is consumers at Detroit Edison. So if we're like in Portland, Grand Haven, all these other utilities around here, if we could be the most attractive muni, that might mean something, because certain people just wanna work for the muni. And I don't think we're gonna be able to outpay, I don't know what consumers does, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do 15%. And that's getting pretty steep, but. But yeah, back in March, it was 8 3/4, so, that 10 or 11 would make us somewhat more attractive than, probably your Portlands or Grand Havens or Hollands or Zealands or Lansings, St. Louis's, etc.
That's nice when you find a candidate, to be able to let them know right up front, we're gonna pay you X, but you're actually gonna get 10% more
so, let me just, so you,
every day or every month.
what are you looking, because it's not listed as an action item. So what are you looking for us tonight? To give you an idea so that you come back with an actual action item at our next meeting?
Ultimately, this will mean talking with the IBEW. We can't just implement.
And we
We
don't
could for all that-
wanna open that until later.
I've thought about that, and, I don't wanna get into negotiation or anything right now in open session, but if I at least know what the board was willing to do, I could, in the right way, talk with the union steward about potentially modifying the agreement just for this. You see what I'm saying? I know we're getting closer next year to the renewal, but I don't want something to slip through the cracks of having to hire a new employee under the hybrid plan. I don't even wanna leave
Yep.
that to risk. So if I could get it done 8, 9, 10 months earlier, there's some value to that. And maybe, if we wanted to keep them grandfathered in the hybrid, and they like the hybrid, maybe that would be enough of an incentive to lock in now, because what if the market tanks by next year, and we have to say, we can't even keep the DB or the hybrid open for current employees because of what just happened, we need to bite the bullet for everybody. So there is that risk to wait for them 10 months. You know, maybe they'd be willing to do it now to be grandfathered. I'm speculating, but I would like to know what the board would be willing to contribute. That's what I would like to know.
What if we did something like a 9 or 10% contribution, which is what you've done the numbers for, the actuarial numbers for, and then did up to 3% dollar for dollar matching. So say you start at 9, 3% more gets them to, well, that gets them to 15. Gets them to their magic 15, 9 plus 3. I like 10 because 10's a good number. It's easy to talk about when you're actually trying to, when you found a good candidate. Listen, we're gonna put away another 10% for you, no matter what. And if you've got, and if you can afford to put some away for yourself, we can match that. And those numbers we need to juggle a little, but if we, like I said, if we started at 9 or 10 and then added a match, because I really think matches are good. I think it encourages savings. And like you said, even though you're young, you need the money now, and policy can be that if they decide they have to change it, they have an opportunity at some point during the year to say, okay, I'm not gonna put away that extra percent this year, because I need it, build a new house, build a barn. You know, something like that. And then, so you kind of have this enrollment period that I wouldn't want to, you know, I don't know, that's a policy issue.
So that's a good framework.
Yeah, I like that idea. The 8.7 or whatever you mentioned for the munis, that's their total contribution?
Correct. In total employer average.
So I kind of like that structure you came up with then, in the sense that if you say we're gonna give you 9 no matter what, which is more than the average you get
Yep.
anywhere, but then another 3 on your part gets you up to 15.
Yeah.
Because it's not a whole lot they'd have to put in then to get up to the 15. It's just
Right.
so they can, you know, if they contribute nothing, they're still getting more than they can find most other places. If they want to put in more, they're in much better shape.
I think this would be easy to justify from a public perception point too, because your normal cost for your hybrid and DB plan is 12%. So if they say, oh, this is such a lucrative benefit, well, this is what we've been giving to everybody prior to this, and that had the potential exposure of the market risk that causes to pay way more. And so you're eliminating that risk. So I think, you know, if there was ever any questions from the community, you're not paying any more than you would have on your current plans, so you eliminate all risk.
You like that? Nine plus 3%, up to 3% additional match, something like
Which
that?
gets them to 15.
That gets them to 15.
Because that basically would be like an option 4. If everybody did their 3%, we'd be putting in 12,
12.
which is kind of like option 4, right, in this analysis.
Yes.
But then that would be very similar to the baseline. If I'm looking at that 2031, yeah, this is option.
You're right,
Option 2,
but
but if you like the option 3 one and you add another 10 or 15,000 to that 433.
I know this is assuming on the baseline all their assumptions.
That's what I mean, is that.
Yes,
I mean, remember
If
that.
they got it right,
yes, that's true.
we're still, at 12, our total employer contribution would be very close to the total employer for the baseline.
Yes.
So we're not really, so what you're saying is that 12% is a similar
It's a
comparison,
wash.
assuming they get it right, and if it's wrong, then it's where you do better.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I see a bunch of heads shaking at 9 and then matching 3%, additional 3%, so total we'd be at 12 if somebody out of their own contributed 3%. So I think I'm seeing a consensus.
How does that sound to employers or employees? I mean, if you were just looking at this as a first-time hire, is that something that would be attractive?
Definitely.
still think about it.
Cool thing.
Cool thing.
Yeah.
Having the home, I don't want you to, is this competitive what you, this is the only job I've known, but
Yeah,
Casey's has been
no,
competitive.
it's very competitive, very generous. Looking at it from a perspective of, total dollars being contributed to a defined contribution, it's like, I would only have to put in 3%, and I'm gonna have a total of 15. That's not a lot to contribute to get that
To get the max.
Yeah, to get the max. Yeah, that's very attractive.
I'm sold.
I'd work
Me too. I know. You guys are lying to get me off that DB, sure.
I want to get off that. I think it's irresponsible for any government entity to remain in a DB program, knowing that unfunded liabilities are the biggest problem we have right now financially with governments.
Look at the
That's
city.
one of the bigger financial risks,
City's in
yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
Okay,
I hear a consensus.
yes,
Okay. That's all.
okay. Schedule of meetings, you've got that in your packet. Our next regular board meeting is the 12th. I am gonna go change things up a little bit, because board comments before we go to closed session, so that people Dan that's here, this is 3.5 hours that you're never gonna get back.
I'm used to it.
Appreciate you sitting through it.
I sit through a lot of conferences.
So,
I'll go first. Tom, again, congratulations to the APPA award, and we can't thank you enough for all your service.
I love doing it. I had so much fun working with all of my peers and putting our heads together, at a round table like the board here, and just saying, well, we need to do it this way, that way, and then we'd argue, and we'd come to a consensus just like this. So that was great working with all those professionals.
Yeah. And Dave, we're gonna miss you. You have a very fun attitude and very positive, and that's sorely missed. I mean, it will be missed. You bring a lot to the table. I know you're one of the younger members, but you bring a lot to the board, and we very much appreciate you being there.
Tina,
Tom, I'm in awe when I read that information, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's one of our own, and I'm very proud of you. I wish my dad was here to see that.
She was too. I liked working with him.
Yeah, he would really appreciate what you've accomplished here, so super good job. Yes. Now, another thing I was interested in was the Miss Dig presentation. I was interested in what color flags and what have you, and thank God that it was up there, because I was questioning that. Because I drive by and I see all those stupid flags all over the place, and I look at it.
They got to be stupid.
What is that for? And how many people mow them over, because I think I have in the past, so.
Big fine for that.
Sorry, guys. So, very cool presentation. So, and Dave, gosh, you're gonna hate not being within our group of low light power, because it's gonna be sad when you lose power. So, be sure to, I'll let you know though, there's room, probably at Andrew's house for your kids to go hang out, but not mine. Just let you know. But we will miss you, thank you so much. That's it.
Andrew,
I guess I'll just echo the thanks to Tom. Probably a thank you at some point for all the good things to do, so I'll leave it at that, because that seems to happen a lot with what we've done. And I also just really enjoy these presentations we keep doing every month, so keep those up, because I don't even have any input on what kind of topic to put in, but the topics you pick, I've never wouldn't have thought of doing a topic on this dig or trenches. That's pretty neat to learn about those. not too many lately on the board, but a lot of folks, there's another place that kind of coast in and just kind of like, just soak it up as they go. But from the beginning, you're very trying to quickly catch up, get up to speed, as if there was something to catch up to, and I like that. So, it makes you reproduce your new house, so you know.
Squirrel guards,
There you go.
trap them squirrels.
Got it? Pink Arrow Community Day is the 23rd out at the Impact Church, the new park, a lot of things to do. Come donate your blood. TV 13, last night had a big thing. It's nice that it's not about us, but an irate customer with Consumers Energy, how they're trimming trees in the north end of Grand Rapids. You know, and that keeps, always crops up, especially after storms and that type of thing. So I think, we do it right here in Lowell, and that shows with our service. Dave, thank you for being a part of the board, but you can still be a part of Lowell Light and Power and come and give your input in the audience. You don't have to always be sitting at this table, we'd love to have you come. And so I'm gonna give you the last word tonight.
Wow, all right. Well, I will come, we can play solitaire over there together.
Well, maybe Dan's gonna be switching spots.
Okay, that's fine. Tom, it's the same thing, everyone's the same. Fantastic, you know it, everyone knows it, thank you for what you do. I feel like I got tapped into for a second, many, many, many years of investment that you guys, especially you two, have made in this company. I know this much of it, and I know it goes deeper than I can even reach. So I am aware of that, and was very grateful for a lifetime of work you put into a place like this to then let someone like me come in and just for a small bit of time witness it. And it strengthens me for a very long time. And then even just having Tina just say how her father would appreciate Tom and everything he done, just so proud of it. To me, that is why I wanted to invest in something like this in this town. It's more than just keeping our numbers afloat, making sure we're, being a competitive employer. It's because we're a family in this community. And it's just worth a lifetime of tradition and of relationships and of families that just work together, live together, and know each other for a very, very long time. So those things more motivated me to do this in the first place. And had every intention to stick this out for as long as I possibly could. My family just had way too many pros outweighing the cons, and we made the choice that this will be the biggest thing I will miss about living in this town, is a chance to have served in some leadership capacity, because I so believe in the spirit of what that was, especially. So I now know a bunch of abbreviations that in my first meeting were like a foreign language. First meeting I sat down and just listened, and Steve was rattling off FERC and MMEA and EPA and all these things, and SCADA, and I honestly thought he was speaking a different language. I heard English, but I had no understanding. The first time it's ever happened to me in my life, no frame of reference. And I absolutely did just dive right in and learn as quickly as I could, because I had to understand the decision I was making, the context, and the importance of every single vote is a big deal. And I just would hope whoever fills this seat has that same level of just responsibility and ownership. This is not something that fills a Thursday night once a month. This is a very, very big deal that shapes a lot of futures and a lot of people's lives. So for that, I'm very grateful. I will miss all of you, and I'll come and sit in the seats once in a while. Not for 3.5 hours, but I will.
Coming for the
I've been trying to push this along.
Yeah.
That's like it.
Okay, and with that, Dave, you will get to have your last motion of going into closed session.
All right, I move or should I entertain it or move it?
You? Move it.
I move that we go into closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Tom, we'd like to, just before